The government tried to ban me from the dark web. I downloaded Tor browser and I back in. Went and got a VPN. Another bin. I'm just killing these bitches and decided to like install them in.
Alright, I'm gonna do the intro. Alright, so today we're talking about ReZero. We watched the first, it was the first 11 episodes technically, but we watched the director's cut, so it was like the first 5 or 6. I think it was 6. So if I refer to an episode by a number that is not in 1 through 6, then like divide it by 2 in your head.
Alright. Already adding math to this bullshit.
So I wanted to start out by talking about, well, first off, how'd you like it?
So let's see. If we're expanding on the Madoka Magica episode, which is the last time that we talked about anime.
Like 3 months ago.
Like 2 months ago, yeah. And I said, disappointingly liked it. I will say that ReZero definitely had more of that anime BS. There was lots of scenes that were ruined by Subaru saying, I want to grab your breasts, and just kind of like generally being a sex pest.
They weren't ruined. Those were the best scenes.
I will say, and this is kind of diving straight into stuff that we didn't really intend to talk about. The patheticness of his character honestly made most of his sexual perversion acceptable.
Because you're like, you feel sorry for him?
No, not that I feel sorry for him, but it's like, usually it seems like in the exposure to animes I have, it's like the women throw themselves at this man and he's like super strong and powerful and he can, fight immediately and he has all the, like Lego ninjutsu powers. Spinjitzu powers like straight out the gate. And then he's also like, let me grab your panties. But this time it's like, he's weird, but he's also like consistently the least powerful and most useless person in the group. And even when he comes into his own, he's not like, the chosen one who just needed his potential unlocked. He still kind of sucks. Like even at the end of the part where we watched, where like he has his redemption arc and like he goes into the forest and there's that whole showdown with the beasts and Rem goes on demon time.
Yeah.
He didn't really do most of the heavy lifting there. He had like a few cool moves and like made good decisions and didn't mess things up. Like it's funny that for Subaru, a success for his arc is to like not die immediately.
Yeah, so that's like the perfect segue into our first topic, which is the genre.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you're gonna tell me about the Isekai genre. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know? Have you heard of the Isekai genre?
I had a friend I was in a Discord server with, and he was writing a novel about birds who go to like a shonen high school, and he said that it was an Isekai / slice of life. And I never knew what that meant, but I've read it, so I can develop a framework. I can develop a framework for what Isekai means in the context of that guy's one story. Shut up, Blue. You're a real one.
So the basic premise is you are a pretty much a loser in your original life. It's typically marketed towards young men, especially in Japan. There's a big problem with young men and being isolated and not being shut-ins, being addicted to anime and video games and stuff. And so it's generally targeted towards those young men. And the premise is that the protagonist either dies or is somehow otherwise spirited away to a fantasy world, usually a fantasy world, where they're given kind of a second chance at life. And in their second chance at life, usually in Isekai, you get the girl, you become super powerful, you become like the king of the world. It's everything that the young men in Japan aren't getting, right? And so in that way, Isekai's kind of like main idea is fantasy escapism. It's like the pinnacle of the idea of escaping to another world, It's showing it's showing the audience becoming that powerful person that they wish they could be. And so what ReZero does, as you said, is that it shows instead of the main character being like, you know, super powerful, super well liked, getting all the women, instead, you know, the main character expects this. In the first episode, there are a lot of jokes about this. There are a lot of jokes about how he expects better starting gear, how he's waiting any moment for the pretty girl who summoned him to show up, and so it takes all these tropes of the isekai genre and subverts them by them not being there until they are. And Amelia does eventually show up, that you know, the pretty isekai girl, and we're going to talk about it in a moment. But
pretty in quotes.
She's very hot. I know you're a Rem guy, but come on.
Surely. No, I see. I remember what you mean, because I remember like picking up in the first episode, even not knowing the genre, that like there were very clear. I mean, we can talk about the isekai genre, but escapism is universal. So for a bit I was put off, but I very quickly like got into the fact it's like, oh, okay, he's doing a fourth wall break where he's like, you know, the three guys corner him and he's like, oh, surely I will have amazing fighting powers. And then he punches the guy and like breaks his own hand.
Yeah. It's sort of like a realistic interpretation of the isekai genre.
Realistic. Anyway, people can die.
I don't want to like harp on about this too much, but do you know? Are you familiar with the word deconstruction?
I'll tell you what. You start talking about deconstruction, and I'll stop you when I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so as I understand it, the idea of a deconstruction of a genre is to take all the component parts, all the tropes, and sort of show them in a more like realistic light. Not necessarily to subvert them, but to show that they're kind of nonsense, that the tropes themselves are kind of nonsense. So, for an example, Madoka Magica is often called a deconstruction of the magical girl genre, where you know, there's the trope of being a magical girl is super awesome and you go on all sorts of adventures, but of course, in Madoka Magica, it shows like a more grim interpretation of this. It's like a more realistic, like what would the world really have to be like for this magical girl system to exist? And it creates Kyubey and all the ideas of exploitation there. So that's sort of a deconstruction of the magical girl genre. And in the same way, I think you could say that ReZero is somewhat a deconstruction of the isekai genre. And I think part of the reason for that it's not simply a subversion, but it is a deconstruction, is because even though it makes jokes about the tropes not appearing early on, it later brings up every single one of the tropes. It brings up, you know, the Emilia as the pretty isekai girl. Subaru does eventually defeat, you know, overcome his challenges. There is like a sort of a harem, you could say, and what ReZero does, instead of subverting them, is it shows what would realistically have to happen for these tropes to exist, and it shows like what would realistically happen from them. And a lot more will be said about this when we can talk about Subaru in the next episode. But yeah, I think in that way you could say that ReZero is a deconstruction, and I don't want to talk about this for too long because everyone always talks about deconstructions and you know, gets on their high horse and be like, oh, my anime is a deconstruction. It's all fancy and isn't about the genre. It's actually very deep.
I mean, you want to talk about, you know,
but yeah,
people deconstructing, you know, being on a high horse. We were riffing on before we started this rapper Lil B, because I was introducing you to his
autistic.
Kevin Durant track.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the same sense, and I can already see the title, you know, Little B, ReZero, and the deconstruction of genres. Little B is very much a deconstruction of rap music, and a lot of people will actually attribute sort of the modern strain of slightly tongue-in-cheek postmodern rap to Little B, because I mean, if you just listen to Kevin Durant, half of the lines don't rhyme. He'll rhyme words with, he'll drop bars like, see me on the court and you'll see me on the court. Let's play a game of basketball. It's really fun. He'll randomly start talking. He'll be out of key. The beats sound like garbage. It's and his whole personality being like, veneration of the self, to the point where he is communicating with some sort of god. It's no longer I'm the shit. It's like, I am Little B, the based god. Is in and of itself a deconstruction of the rap genre, and that doesn't necessarily, I think, mean that it's a high artistic statement. It's just necessarily, it's a way to, how do you want to say, maybe discuss and at its base level poke fun at elements of the genre, but maybe push the genre forward. Or
I've often heard it said that the way genres evolve is through all of the tropes getting completely saturated, and then some work comes along and deconstructs the genre, and then a bunch of new tropes are born in its place.
Well,
so that's how genres evolve.
So I was going to say, like, I wonder, because we see how ReZero deconstructs the Isekai genre. What does it push forward? And you and I want to hear your answer, because I have an answer that I think is kind of interesting, that I know we both said privately we want to talk about a little bit more at some point.
So to say what the main point of ReZero is, I have to talk about Subaru, and I really don't want to do that until the next episode, because the next arc is so important to unravel.
Well, let's only talk about Subaru in the context of the first 11 episodes.
Yeah, at his heart, in these first 11 episodes, the idea with Subaru is to show what this young male who is, a shut-in and has no power would really do. It's really just basically that Subaru is showing how challenges can be overcome in a more realistic way, and I can go more into detail with that after the next arc. But what were you gonna say?
Well, so I was gonna say, I think that the perhaps the way that ReZero, I'm not going to talk about the Isekai genre because I don't know, I haven't watched enough. I'm going to talk about the way that ReZero has pushed forward at least shows that rely on guy goes to world and is super powerful, has another chance at life, is to introduce some of the maybe existentialist man versus self implications that are there, because very, very rarely, I think that the escapism genre didn't start in the 40s and 50s, but I think it's interesting that a lot of classics in the American world come out of World War I and World War II. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Lord of the Rings are sort of the two most obvious ones, right? And I guess those can sort of be characterized by an undertone of mental anguish hidden by the funny exterior. Because there is a lot of
the funny
exterior. I revisited The Hobbit recently, and did you know, like, every time the Bomber is mentioned, he's called fat?
I don't know that.
Just like the all the dwarves came down except for poor fat Bomber, who had his fat ass stuck in a barrel and couldn't get out.
It's called characterization.
How the Lord of the Rings develops his characters through body shaming.
True.
No, but
the hobbits are short.
there's an undertone of maybe mental anguish that doesn't come to the surface, and ReZero brings it to the surface. It's not an existentialist piece of art, but my favorite sort of part of it was the anticipation that I couldn't really place, that I realized halfway through was actually fear every time Subaru would wake up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the idea that if one day I was just whisked away to a new place, the fact that something as basic as I exist in a world has been taken away from us, that we're that so many things can change, but I know one thing as a human being: I exist in this world. I do not exist in any other worlds. I exist in this world. For that to be changed would fuck with my mind a lot. And I like how ReZero leverages that and pushes the genre forward by saying, hey, let's talk about the fact that just how much it can mess with your head to have the basic facts of life messed with, rather than just talking about the escapism. And so yeah. What were you gonna say?
Why do you say it's? I was gonna ask, why do you say it's not existentialist?
I didn't. Well, so I think existentialism would be a term. I didn't want to say existentialist just because we did existentialism with Madoka Magica, and so I don't want to retread old ground. Existentialism is a fair term to use here, but frankly, I haven't done any scholarly reading about existentialism since that, so I'll have pretty much the same things to say about existentialism.
I mean, I don't remember what we talked about. I know we said that it would be cool if we could like draw connections between everything and like build like a massive web of art, but I don't remember what we talked about. So
I mean, I think we talked about like mythicists stuff and about like, you know, suicide versus you know, but no, I just that was, and I haven't told you this, but that was sort of the most I felt at ReZero was sometime around like, you know, episode 4 that we watched, where Subaru wakes up and it's unsure whether or not he's replaying the life where Rem and Ram, you know, are just meeting him, or whether they already know him.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wait a little bit. And that, I legitimately felt like existentialist fear in that moment, which was so wild to me, having, like I said, really haven't taken this anime that seriously in watching it. I mean, the first...
You know what?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the first thing I did once I saw, like, you know, Rem go demon mode was cut that video and put it over Playboy Cardi's Stop Breathing.
She was pogging. Give her some credit. She was looking fire that day.
Rem pogging. Rem is pogging.
So I was gonna say, I think you have definitely identified a theme here of, you know, this uncertainty over like your own existence, because, you know, as you said, you're sure that you live in this world, and then Subaru is whisked into another world. But not only is he whisked into another world, every time he wakes up, he's sort of in a new world. Like he doesn't actually know the status of everything around him every time he loops, and so the uncertainty there certainly creates a lot of existential fear with it. I think you've identified a theme here of uncertainty with one's own existence, right? Because Subaru was whisked into this Isekai world, but not only that, every time he loops, there's uncertainty with the status of the world in the moment, because he doesn't have like full control over the reset points, and he also doesn't know when he dies. Sometimes he dies at night unknowingly, and when he wakes up, he doesn't know whether he's looped or whether he's continued or whether he survived, you know. And so that existential dread, that existential fear, that uncertainty is definitely a theme in ReZero.
But Beatrice knows him, like is privy to this cycling, isn't she?
I don't think so.
Because she's aware of like curses and stuff. I wonder if she like understands.
So the way it works is what's happening to Subaru is implied to be due to the Witch of Envy.
Yeah.
And the witches are not like they're sort of like mythical creatures in this world, and not they're not well understood, and so like their magical powers are also not well understood by most of the cast. And so I don't think Beatrice would be privy to the kind of powers that, especially the Witch of Envy, who is rumored to have killed all the other witches.
God, they're not gonna become witches, are they? I can't do this again.
No. It's not Madoka Magica.
Is this just Madoka Magica? Is every anime Madoka Magica? This is just like the one anime
the witches are unironically this time. They're just the seventh deadly sin.
The witches are unironically just witches.
They're the seven deadly sins.
I am ironically.
Yo, my roommate left. Let's go. Now he won't watch TV.
Why don't you? Because I talked a little bit about escapism. You were someone more, I guess, familiar with isekais in general. Can you tell me, is there anything special about the escapism of the isekai genre other than the fact that it appeals to Japanese men?
The genre specifically, I wouldn't say so. I would say that there are some genres in anime and manga that are very specifically geared towards this young male escapism. I could name the harem genre as another. You don't actually go to another world. You just get a harem for no reason, because that's what young men would like to do and can't do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a young men specific thing. I mean, American media has a whole genre of there were actors who have entire careers based around this 40-year-old slob who doesn't have his life together suddenly has this hot woman who wants to be with him. It's like Adam Sandler's career.
Okay, so on the subject of Emilia, I wanted to know what you think of her as a character, like in terms of how she's written, just like the level of, I guess, the level of character writing. Like, what is your opinion? In comparison to the others.
I like their sort of attention to trying to make her like as inexplicably perfect as possible. She's pretty, she's kind, she's secretly the heir to the kingdom. She has the little adorable thing, no matter how disrespectful and perverted Subaru is. She's always like, oh haha, you're so funny, or just like doesn't seem to notice. She's almost not real. I don't like the way you said that. Is she like not real?
No, she's real.
Okay,
but,
she's real. No, but
she's very real.
But like it seems like if I had to organize the characters in terms of like existing, like Subaru always exists, and like so does Puck and Beatrice and like the head of the household, and then like after that, Rem and Ram usually exist. Amelia, like 50% of the time, seems like the world isn't even interacting with her. Like stuff will just happen and she won't even like intake information from the world. It's like she's like a peripheral idea that isn't actually a real character. Not to say that she isn't written well or isn't an interesting character, but when I talk about like characters that interact with each other, it's like half the stuff goes over her head. It's like she's more of an idea than a thing. She's just there to like be perfect.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think her purpose, at least in these first 11 episodes, is pretty much exclusively thematic. Like, she definitely has a very good amount of character development, especially in Arc 1, but in Arc 2 she really takes a back seat to Rem and Ram. And her purpose throughout the first 11 episodes is, I think, really just the thematic emblem of the pretty isekai girl who the protagonist gets. And she is constantly existing just sort of as an idea in the background, like you said, as like shit, implying that Subaru is working to get her, right? She exists exclusively to represent the theme of the protagonist will get this girl, and she will get a lot more deep character development later on. But I think that is the reason that she gets sort of a lack of character development in the first 11 episodes and in season 1 in general, is because she exists to serve just that thematic purpose. Okay, so then the next thing I wanted to talk about was I think ReZero has a very unique way of doing storytelling in general. It's very focused on the characters, and the reason that I think ReZero is so good, in my opinion, is because it gives pretty much all of its development to the characters instead of the plot, even though the plot is very good, I think, in general. It really gives the characters so much time to talk, and as you said when we were watching it, to faff about. You complained a lot about what you thought was filler, but I will defend every bit of filler, every line of dialogue in that show.
There was a lot. There was filler in that. This anime had filler in it. Madoka Magica had very little filler. This anime had filler.
Well, Madoka Magica was very dense, and I think that the reason for that is that it existed to say some very specific thematic things. Because the level of character writing in ReZero is, I think, much better than it is in Madoka Magica. Do you agree?
Level of character writing, yes.
And also, it's just how lifelike the characters feel.
Well, I mean, what I'll say, because I think I had this sort of criticism in Madoka Magica, which is that the evolution is compressed, and I'm sure it's different watching it as it comes out, but watching them all back to back, it makes things happen too quickly. And I mean, that's a conversation for a different day about, like, you know, in this era of binging and streaming, what has changed about shows? What some shows weren't meant to be watched back to back to back. But I will concede that the character writing, I'm not sure if I prefer the characters in ReZero to the characters in Madoka Magica, but the character writing is better just because it doesn't feel as if these transitions are compressed into like 10 minutes. I wish they were compressed a little bit more.
And I think a big part of that is the amount of time they're given to have dialogue, and also the fact that all of the dialogue is very strongly characterizing each of the characters. Like every time Subaru speaks, he sounds retarded. Every time Rem speaks, she sounds either suspicious or is explaining things about her personal life and feelings, or her relationship with the other people in the mansion, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what part of that would be filler? Because if it's all characterizing the characters,
it's very simple. The filler was that, like, they would stand in the room demanding, "What do you know about Ram? What do you know about her dying?" And that would be like 5 minutes, and he could have just, like, ran. They didn't have to stand there staring at each other and, like, making panting noises and stuff. I don't like how many panting noises there are in anime. Why is that a thing in the genre? Why not even genre? Why is that a thing in the art form? Why how come every anime I watch there's, like, extended breathing noises?
Okay. It's kind of...
You have no response. We can move on, but you have no response.
No.
Point one.
My response is...
Point
the
one
only
for
one
me.
Panting was Subaru.
Point
because
one.
he was hyperventilating because he was fearful.
Nope. Point one for me. And now
I'm right.
Now you may continue.
I'm right.
Cope. Okay. But yes, development of...
They weren't even faffing about in that scene. That's
yes, they
not
were.
even... No, they weren't.
They didn't have... Go back to that scene. You mean to tell me that that couldn't have been compressed at all? You mean to tell me... Well, I mean, one, it's stupid because, you know...
It was... Okay, no. It was the initial... What happened in that scene, everything that happened in that scene, was the initial Subaru seeing Rem dead, Ram screaming at him, Ram getting very angry and trying to attack him, Beatrice protecting him, Rosewall getting angry at Beatrice for trying to protect Subaru for no evident reason, and then the room blew up.
Yeah, that could have been like a minute.
These are all really important character interactions, though.
Yeah, they could all have been a minute.
It was.
No, it was like 5.
It was like 2 minutes.
It was like 5 minutes. It took way too long. Anyway, I also, I don't know. I'm so I don't understand the trope where, we blame the newcomer immediately because something bad happened.
I explained this to you.
What? You have the stench of the witch on you. Like, is the curse so powerful that, like, I mean, I understand he can't say, when I die, I come back to life or whatever. He can't say that. But can he not say, hey, Amelia and I had an interaction with a witch? Can he not say that?
They would literally kill him on the spot if he said that.
Who would kill him on the spot?
Probably every person in that room, because the witches are very evil people, or supposedly.
Okay, we were out.
The myth. And
we were out and a witch attacked us.
It's like the whole reason that they suspect Subaru and that they don't like the witch's cult is because those are people who are trying to, like, commune with the witch. They're people who are, like, trying to tap into the witch's power. And so if Subaru said that he communed with the witch in exactly that way, he would get obliterated.
He didn't say commune.
Okay, Matt, it doesn't matter.
He would say, hey, Amelia, remember that time when we were out and we got attacked by a witch? And she would say, yeah. That's so hard?
Why would Amelia say yes?
Because that's a thing that happened. Why would she say no?
What?
So long as he doesn't implicate...
They didn't get attacked by a witch. They didn't get attacked by a witch.
What were they doing in that drug den where she was trying to sell this? I mean, obviously, like, okay, she shouldn't be trying to sell the...
that wasn't a witch. That wasn't a witch.
Oh.
The Bowel Hunter?
Yeah, I thought that was the witch.
Yeah. That's not a witch. That's just a person.
Oh. Yeah, well, because every time Subaru dies, he, like, bleeds and gets stabbed, so I just assumed that, like, that was the Bowel Hunter.
No, the first time he died in Arc 2 anyway was due to the dog bite.
They call me the Bowel Hunter because I'm always on the prowl for that ass.
That's what she would say.
Oh, well, I was gonna say something actually. Like there was something a long time ago before I started complaining that you said that I wanted to touch on. No, what I was gonna say, there's something interesting, I think, about the plot sort of replaying itself, where you can't really have plot-focused character development because there's only so much that can happen. It's hard to develop people in 24 hours.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Bill Murray's Groundhog Day, just because I think that it's a surprisingly good character study of a movie for where the characters can never do anything for more than 24 hours. There's no chance to go on a long journey. There's no chance to see someone grow and change. You only got 24 hours. So it necessitates development through writing.
Yeah, so I think that the way ReZero generally works is that pretty much everything in its story is in service of the characters and giving them space to develop with and interact with each other. And it's that the repeating after death thing is a way for all of the characters to show different sides of themselves as Subaru makes different decisions and changes how his relationship in each loop with the characters is. In addition, it's just the problems in the plot. So for example, in Arc 2, one of the major problems is getting Rem to trust Subaru, because Rem is killing him every time because she suspects that he's part of the witch's cult because he smells and he's sneaking around the mansion very strangely. And so this puzzle of trying to get Rem onto Subaru's side means that everything that Subaru does to advance that part of the plot forward is by nature character development. Like, it's exploring Rem's character and giving her a chance to respond to the different things that Subaru tries. And so I think that part of the reason why ReZero has such lifelike characters is because everything in the story is in service of them.
What do you mean? You say everything in the story is in service of it?
I mean, everything from the plot to the backstory, the setting is designed to give the characters space to interact with one another and to give Subaru reasons to talk and interact with other characters and to develop them.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Does that change?
No, it doesn't. I think that ReZero has either the best or the second best character writing in all of anime. And I think that it's very unique in that aspect, and it's probably my most appreciated thing in media is when they develop characters at the expense of other things.
I wonder if that would ever wear out its welcome. The idea that, you know, that the characters take such a focus. I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I am excited to sort of watch, I guess, the long form show. See what changes. Sort of. I mean, as we're here now, all I know is that, you know, Rem's a demon and weird stuff is happening. I kind of wonder how the scope of the show is going to increase and what happens with the increased scope of the show.
It really takes, I think it's amazing that this is the case. It really takes the entirety of the first 2 seasons to properly flesh out just the main cast in the mansion.
You know, I guess because I sort of have always had this outlook on art. I tell people I hate art.
Yeah.
And it's kind of true. Because nothing that I have ever read or watched has ever struck me more than real things that I've seen happen. Or real things that I know can happen. Or real stories that I've heard. I subscribe. I spoke to the author, Michael Patrick McDonald, who sort of wrote this book called All Souls about growing up in South Boston. And he talked about how he was approached to around the same time that the movie The Departed came out, which is very similar. It's about like the mob and police and stuff in South Boston. He was sort of approached to adapt his book into a movie. And he sort of said no, and the implication was that, you know, it was either him or The Departed, and the idea that his movie would have come out other than The Departed was interesting. But he said that A, you know, he didn't want to make gangster porn, and B, that truth is honestly a lot of times stranger than fiction. And in that sense, most plots or whatever are, I don't know, hollow. They're, you know, just reading, you know, what's supposed to be a show with a really good plot. It never feels as real and as expressive as things that happen under the sun in our world.
Okay, what was your question?
I don't know, man. I went off the deep end.
we are in the deep end. I don't know what's happening anymore. All right, ask your dumb question at the end.
No, that I mean, you know what, cut.